So we're just going live now with, my name's Keith Griggs, and I'm very happy to welcome Steve Pipe on the show today. And Steve Pipe, like me, used to work as a chartered accountant, but is a member still of the same body that I am, the Institute of Chartered Accountants. But now he's really working on making companies a force for good, which I think is a really exciting topic. By the way, this is going to be this talk is going to be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also on podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, etc. So it's in a load of different places. You can find them all if you go to keithgriggs.com/show. So welcome to the show, Steve. It's great to have you.
Thanks so much for having me, Keith.
Okay. And I know that you're going to talk about many things, including, how any company can be a force for good, which I think is a mind-blowing concept in itself, and how they should be a force for good, and how it can even help them, become more profitable at the same time. And also, you're going to be publishing a book soon, which you're giving away for free, and we'll come on to all that. But first of all, I wonder if you could just tell us about your story, how you got to be, at this stage in your sort of life and career.
Yeah, well, at this stage in my life and career, I'm a 59-year-old. Originally come from Watford. My first love is Watford football team, but I now live in Yorkshire, so I also love Leeds United. I'm a chartered accountant by background, but my route through accountancy and beyond conventional accountancy, I guess, has been a little bit unusual. Along the way, I've written 7 books. I've wrote an 8-part BBC TV series, picked up a few awards, had 3 wonderful children, each of whom is either an accountant or married to, living with accountants. My wife is also an accountant, so accounting runs deep. I trained in a big firm, set up my own small firm, was the head of finance for 140 million division at Kodak well before it went bust, not my responsibility. but more interestingly, I built my own 40-person consulting business, which I started from not even a spare bedroom. We didn't have a spare bedroom. We had a 2-bedroom house, and Laura, our oldest, who's now a 28-year-old GP, it was her bedroom, but I started an accounting consulting business in that room where she was sleeping, and we grew to 40 people, and I sold it to the management team at 50. So it's an interesting, if somewhat unusual, pathway. And since 50, so that's 8-9 years ago now, I've increasingly been reducing my involvement in the things that I used to do, which was consulting, speaking, writing, specifically around business success. Well, I still do those things, I suppose, but the angle at which I come at it from is now very different. Previously, I would have looked at conventional levers in the profit equation, and looked to find ways to help businesses generate more referrals, for example. But actually, now what I've discovered is that when we use our businesses as a force for good, what happens is that we re-energize the business, we re-motivate the people, we re-engage with our customer bases and our communities and our audiences. We build more successful businesses at the same time as building a more successful world. And that's just a joyful discovery and such an easy thing to put into practice. So that's really where these days my focus is.
Okay, sounds great. Sounds a really interesting journey, and it's also, it's also very inspiring to meet someone who's not just about trying to make as much money as possible, but at the same time, obviously trying to make the world a better place in some way. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that message as well. So first of all, because I think a lot of people will think, they can either go in 2 directions. They can either just go for making as much money as possible, but how can actually, and they think that then they have to sort of screw over the rest of the world in some way or manipulate them.
Yeah, well,
so how can they possibly do both things at the same time?
In a sense, that you just summed up quite neatly what I could sum up in a different phrase, which is, there's been this debate, this apparent choice between profit or purpose. People often talk about that. You can have one or the other, but you can't have both. And the purpose, putting purpose at the core of your business, is sometimes at the expense of profit. But I would like to suggest that actually it doesn't need to be that way. I mean, quite frankly, even if it were that way, I would still think it's the right thing to do, to be consistent with your values and who you are and what you stand for and the difference you want to make in the world. It shouldn't make any difference whether it's at the expense of a little bit of profit or not.
Because actually, someone did once say, what profit a man if he gained the whole world but lose his soul?
Correct, yeah.
Not
Absolutely,
not that I'm into all that myself, but I do particularly really like that saying. And I think it's really true, and you do see a lot of incredibly rich people who are incredibly unhappy because
well, I think what's really interesting is the overwhelming majority of people I meet, and I'm sure it's the same with you, Keith, the overwhelming majority of people I meet are actually genuinely really nice people. They have a set of values, a worldview, a heart. Their humanity shines through at home, in their family lives, but what I don't understand is when many of us go to work and we come out, I can see my front door from here, if I were to step outside my front door, what happens in many instances, those values, that kindness, that generosity, that thoughtfulness gets left at the house door and doesn't go to work with you. And we don't understand how to build those same values and put them centrally in our business lives as we do in our family lives. And there's this strange, barrier, dichotomy between the two, and it definitely doesn't have to. It shouldn't be that way, because then we're often conflicted. We want to be nice, but we feel that in business you have to be cutthroat and you have to shaft the other guy or whatever whatever it is. Or at simplest, it's profit or purpose, and we choose profit in business and we try to live the purpose thing at home. Actually, I think it can and should be both. So to go back to your question then, how practically do you make that happen? What I'd like to do is just talk you and I through, and everyone who's watching, through a little scenario which I hope will help people understand what's possible and understand how simple and powerful it is. So imagine that this crazy world that we're currently in has got a bit less crazy, and we are allowed to go out into town, and we're in town and we fancy a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, whatever it is, your hot drink of choice. So you're standing there on the high street, and in front of you are two coffee shops in exactly the same sort of way as people will be, looking at you and I on screen. One of us is on the left, one of us is on the right. These two coffee shops are in front of us. One is on the left, one is on the right. They're obviously equally convenient. You're standing in front of them both. As it turns out, they sell exactly the same coffee. They have exactly the same kind of decor, which is equally attractive to you. They have exactly the same well-trained baristas making the coffee. They use the same ingredients. The environment is the same. The furniture is the same. The price is the same, whatever the going rate for a cup of coffee is where you're watching this. But let's say it's £3 sterling, as it probably would be in most UK kind of coffee shops. Exactly the same. You're standing in front of these seemingly identical two coffee shops, one on the left and one on the right. There is one small difference. When you go into the coffee shop on the left, you get your cup of coffee. When you go into the coffee shop on the right, as well as getting your cup of coffee, what also happens is that a child in Africa gets access to clean water for the day. And that clean water is life-changing in many ways, because when I was in Kenya last September, we went and visited some projects out there. And one of the things I wanted to do was experience walking from the village to wherever they got their water from, which is inevitably downhill, because water collects at the bottom of hills. So you walk downhill with an empty water carrier in the baking 30-degree sunshine. You fill up with this brown stuff, which actually is not too dissimilar to the tea that's in my cup. It's brown, muddy, sludgy stuff. You've now got this hugely heavy weight thing. You carry it back now uphill in the sweltering heat. And by the way, the people doing this are usually 8, 9, 10-year-old girls. The youngest girl in the family often gets delegated the job of bringing the water. The problem with it is, as well as it being backbreaking, as well as the water being not very clean, and therefore with all the associated health risks. But the problem is that it takes such a long time often, that job of bringing water backwards and forwards. We walk 3/4 of a mile to our muddy puddle to get the water, that actually the time taken to bring the water back, which is clearly crucial to survival, means that young girl can't go to school. Literally, there's not enough time to get a proper education and get the water. But simply because I've gone into the coffee shop on the right, not only do I get my cup of coffee for £3, but that young girl gets access to clean water in the village and therefore doesn't have to traipse down to the well. And therefore, as well as being healthier, she's also able to go to school and lifts her entire family and entire future up. Now, this is the choice. You're standing outside these two coffee shops. You have an equally convenient choice between the two. It's an equal cost. You can go in the coffee shop on the left, which doesn't get this, which just sells coffee. Or you can go in the coffee shop on the right, where they do get this, where they've decided to turn their business into a force for good and to link what they do with making some good happen in the world. And you can not only get your cup of coffee, but you can change your life. And the question is, for everybody watching this, is which one would you go into? And obviously we can't, Keith, you and I can't see the reaction that people give, but I can tell you I've done this on web events with 200 people. I've done it in rooms of 1,000 people. In a room of people, I get people to literally stand up and go either to the left or the right of the room. You get this very, very visual demonstration of the choices people make, and I'm pretty sure you can guess which choice people say they would make. They all say, well, not quite all. We get about 1% of people that go to the coffee shop on the left. Usually that's because they didn't understand the question.
Right.
Maybe it's something about my accent or whatever. But, and there are other legitimate reasons. Some people just don't want to give in other ways. That's an answer that people have said. However, overwhelmingly, people say they would go to the coffee shop on the right. So what does that mean? If you're watching this and you are like everybody else, one of those people that would go to the coffee shop on the right, what is that telling you? What is that telling you about? So the coffee shop on the right has now got, in the case of the last time I did this in front of a big audience, we had over 1,000 people in the room. About 10 people went to the coffee shop on the left and 990. If this actually was a coffee shop, you've got a Soviet-style queue outside it down the street on one of the coffee shops, which is in itself slightly off-putting. You've got that much queue. But the other coffee shop is basically empty. What is this telling us about which of those two coffee shops is the better one to own and run? What is it telling us about which of those two methodologies to either build kindness into your business model, as the coffee shop on the right is doing? In fact, it's deliberately on the right because it's patently doing the right things, whereas the coffee shop on the left is deliberately on the left because it is going to get left behind, isn't it? It's going to get left behind when the customers choose to go to the other coffee shop.
So obviously, yes, if it's my choice, I'd prefer to own the one on the right because you make considerably more money, and also you help a lot more people in Africa have access.
Absolutely spot on. And it doesn't have to be water in Africa. That's merely my example, and this isn't about coffee shops. This is a metaphor for any business. And we'll come back to the extension of that metaphor into a practical reality, how people can apply it. But let's just go back and reflect on our coffee shop metaphor. So if you're the owner, if I'm you and I are both accountants, if we were advising a business and we said, and the business owner came to said, look, we've got two possible business models, one of which will involve us getting 10 people shopping a day, and the other will involve us getting 990 selling it at the same price. Which of those two would you recommend, Mr. Accountant? It's crystal clear that if that's actually people's behavior. Now, obviously, all 990 people don't always do what they say they're going to do. We all know that. Of course we don't. I'm not suggesting that 990 versus 10 will be the actual outcome.
No.
But what I am suggesting is that the evidence is sufficiently strong that more people will choose the coffee shop that is making a positive difference in the world than will choose the other one, if they understand that that's what's happening. So obviously there's all sorts of other issues around that, which we can come on to. But in principle, at its heart, if a business naturally as a byproduct of what the business is doing, the business's success, if that is linked to good things happening in the business, selling cups of coffee in our example here, with good things happening in the world, and if that story is told in the right kind of sensitive way, then what we get is a business that will be more successful, where more customers will want to shop there. And there's a huge body of other evidence that shows that that's actually the case.
Okay, all right. So let me just
in this example, but
okay. So let me just jump in here. So I think I understand now. I think basically what it's about. So the idea is that whatever business whatever company you run, there could be a way of giving back in some way, which could, one way would be helping get clean water in Africa, but or you could be something that's directly tied to your own product or service that's more relevant to it, or your local community, if you're a local business, that makes more sense. So you find something that, or someone, some cause that you believe in yourself, that's a good cause to help, and also that you think would resonate with your target market, that they would think it's a good thing to help as well. And then you basically give them some money, maybe like a small percentage of your earnings or profit, or something like that, or you find some way of helping them. And then also you publicize the fact that you're doing that, so everyone knows that you're doing that. So that helps them, I suppose, firstly have a really just a good feeling about your company, that you're not there to just sort of rip them off and make money, that you are actually good, you do stand for something, you are trying to make the world, and that has, that gives you a nice warm fuzzy feeling. So interacting with them, it becomes a pleasurable experience, rather than just like a business thing. So and then also it creates a lot of trust and rapport and that sort of thing, which are essential to sort of do business. So it does all that, and so like from an emotional point of view, and also people really know that by supporting you, they are supporting this cause as well. So it's doing some practical good as well as helping produce this sort of nice warm feeling that also indirectly also increases your profits as well. So does that sort of summarize it
does. And inevitably, actually, to do that really well, there are some important nuances that make it more effective. But yes, essentially, that's the idea. I mean, essentially, at its simplest, the idea is this: if my business has done this, if your business, Keith, did this, if every other business watching this did this, got a piece of paper and drew a vertical line down the middle. On the left-hand side of that piece of paper, think about the potential triggers, the things that are good for your business that you want to encourage more of. In the coffee shop example, it was really simple. We sell a cup of coffee, or we sell a hot drink. Could be as simple as just we sell our core product. Or it could be more nuanced. It could be, every time we sell a product, every time we get a new customer, every time someone joins our mailing list, every time someone follows us on social media, every time we get a referral. We could nuance it like that. Every time we get paid on time. Or we could keep it really simple and just have one trigger, one thing that we've decided is what we're going to use as the trigger for creating an act of kindness. And then down on this piece of paper, on the left-hand side, you may have one, you may have many triggers, things which are good for the business: getting paid, winning a customer, getting a referral, making a sale, those kind of things, raising an invoice. On the right hand side of the piece of paper, decide what you would like, what impact you would like to create in the world. In my coffee shop example, it was simple. It was coffee and water. Of course, we each might choose and it was water in Africa, but we might each choose fundamentally different things. So for example, I've written 7 books over the years. We planted thousands of trees, and every time a book was sold, a tree was planted. There's a natural connection, of course, between cutting down a tree to make a book and planting a tree to restore what we've just destroyed or taken out, sort of thing. Every time someone attends one of my web events, well, we do vary what we give, but the most common thing that we give to say thank you for someone attending one of my web events, and of course, someone attending a web event, a seminar effectively, but online, we've just used e-technology to learn together. That's the nature of a webinar type thing. So to thank the delegates at my webinars, on their behalf, I give a month's worth of access. This is per delegate. A month's worth of access to a child in rural India to e-learning, so that they've got an e-learning facility in their otherwise remote and educationally challenged village, so that they've got a better educational experience and better educational outcomes. Now, the extraordinary thing about all of these examples that I've been talking about is how Because the question that many people ask, and you haven't asked yet, but I'm pretty sure you were going to go on to ask, which is, yeah, but Steve, surely, to pay for that water in my coffee shop example, or to pay for the e-learning, or to plant the tree, actually that costs a lot of money, doesn't it? And does that?
Yeah, but obviously they make a lot more profit.
You're dead right. They've got 990 sales in my metaphorical example versus 10. There's a lot of additional revenue. As accountants, you and I both understand that, but it's also probably important to look at the net cost, the extra cost that the coffee shop on the right incurs, because then we can remove the one final objection. You can object to this on a number of grounds. You can object to it on the basis that you actually don't want to use your business as a force for good, and that's a valid choice. It's a sad one, but it's a valid choice. You can object to this on the basis that you don't believe that more people will come to you, but actually all the evidence suggests that they will. Or you can object to it on the basis that it's too expensive to do. Yeah, more people are going to come, and it is a nice thing to do, but I can't afford to do it. So let's just tackle that I can't afford to do it. I've many times asked people, how much do you think it costs to plant a tree for one of my books? Or how much do you think it costs to fund a month's worth of access to e-learning in rural India as I fund when someone attends one of my events? Or how much does it cost to fund a day's worth of access to clean water for that young girl in Kenya? And the answer to those questions is extraordinarily, embarrassingly small. So in the case of the water, less than 1 US cent a day, definitely well under 1 pence. So you've got a £3 cup of coffee. You're now selling 990 of them. If we stick with my crazy numbers, and that's going to cost you $9.90 a day to build that queue. There is no other marketing spend for $9.90 over the course of the day where you completely obliterate the sales of the shop next door and massively make yours successful for $9.90, 1 cent per cup of water. So it's, and the reason it's that inexpensive is because and this is you and I as accountants could do the following maths ourselves. If you take the cost of a well, I don't know how much a well in Africa costs, but let's say it's $1,000. It's probably several times that, but let's just keep the math simple. You've got a well that costs $1,000. If I was asked to fund a well, I would have to think seriously about whether I can stump up $1,000. It's out of reach, and I probably wouldn't. Most businesses probably wouldn't. But if you take the cost of the well and divide it by the number of people in the village that well is going to serve, and divide it by the number of days it's going to provide water to that many people, you can work out the per person per day funding cost of that well. And then you can invite a coffee shop or anybody else who wanted to fund water to fund 1 day's worth, or any multiple, 1 day, 1 year, 1 month, 32 days, take your pick, and fund the fractional cost. So we've sort of taken the big lumpy fixed cost in the language of us accountants and broken it down into a more manageable daily cost. And then if you've got something which I call Amazon for kindness, if you can go online and you can say, well, today I want to fund 78 days of access to water for 78 cents, I can just do that in exactly as easily as I could if I was buying something from Amazon today. So the technology exists to make all of that possible. The accounting exists to break down the big lumpy cost into the small cost. So planting a tree, I can plant a tree again in Kenya, actually, a forest tree in Kenya for 40 cents.
Wow.
So that's an extraordinarily small amount of money. Or I can plant a tangerine tree, and I frequently do, in Malawi for 68 cents. These are all US cents. So that's about 50p, isn't it? And the tangerine tree has the advantage of not only, helping to combat carbon emissions, as all trees do, but also yielding fruit. So that tree is planted by a farmer, funded by me, planted by a farmer, does its bit for the environment, but also yields fruit, which is both a food and a source of income for the farmer. So that tree, that's 68 cents, 50p or so, that I chose to give when someone bought a paper version of my books, was making a difference, on multiple levels, but for an embarrassingly small amount of money. And if my webinar example, when people attend my webinar and I fund, this is per delegate, often get 100+ people delegates. So I will often have given 100 children in India access to e-learning for a month. Now, how much does that cost? Access to e-learning is 1 cent a day per person, per school child. So there are 20 school days in a month. It's 20 cents a month. For 100 delegates, that's $20. That's about.
So does that mean that they
£16.
have their own computer or something?
That
They
means
have
that
access to-
in their school or their
Yeah.
classroom, we might think of them as schools, but realistically, they're often a single room building.
Yeah.
But anyway, in the school facility, they'll have access to the internet and the technology, the hardware and the software and the connection, so that they can access learning resources from elsewhere, but beamed into.
So it could be group learning.
It will be group learning. At 1 cent, that is group learning.
Yeah.
But it's 20 cents per child per month. To fund that group learning facility, which helps improve the educational experience and the educational attainment. So that for 100 delegates, that's cost me $20, 17 quid or so, to say thank you. Now, I can tell you that the connection you create with your audience, with your customer base, with your friends and family, when you do this kind of stuff, is absolutely the 17 pounds that it cost me for one of those events, or the 50 pence it cost me to plant a tree, or the 1 cent it cost to provide water. The connection that you make, the bonding, the strengthening of the relationships. But also, if I go back to my coffee shop example, just imagine, of those 2 coffee shops, remember the one on the left, which is the one that's probably going to get left behind because it's not doing this. One on the right is the coffee shop that's doing the right things and has got this, many more customers. It's got many more customers, yes. When the business owner wakes up in the morning, looks at his bank account, he's very happy with the improved results, but actually can look at himself in the mirror as well and say, I'm doing something really worthwhile. Our coffee shop is not just providing great coffee to customers in Leeds or Watford or wherever the coffee shop is, but it's actually changing lives. If you were the family members of the coffee shop owner, coffee shop on the left, well, you're proud of your husband, wife, whoever it is that runs that coffee shop because of their entrepreneurial spirit. But you're even more proud of the coffee shop owner on the right because they're also making a difference in the world. If you're a team member, if you're a barista making coffee, which of those 2 coffee shops is more likely to fill you with enthusiasm, with joy, with an intention to actually do a better job and sell more coffee because you change more lives? It's clearly the coffee shop on the right. You've got a more engaged team, you've got a more engaged customer base that goes and tells people about the business. You get more referrals because you're doing great stuff. You get more engaged team members, you get more productivity, you get more motivation, you get more joy, you get more profitability. And here's the really interesting thing. So as an accountant, I would always ask my audience and the potential coffee shop customers, okay, so thus far 990 of you have said you'd go to the coffee shop on the right when they are selling the coffee at the same price. So let's now imagine that the coffee shop on the right increases its price to cover the cost of the water, which is, let's say it puts its price up by 1 pence, which we know is now more. It's actually putting the price up by more than it costs for the water. The water is 1 cent. So it puts its price up. So each cup of coffee is intrinsically more profitable per unit, regardless of how many you sell, because you're getting fractionally more net of costs if you charge £3 and a penny than you do if you charge £3 and don't give the water. And so I then ask the audience, okay, now switch. If we're online, I ask them to type the word switch into the chat box or stay. Would you stay at the £3 and a penny shop, or would you switch to the cheaper £3 cup? No one ever switches. So
because it's only a penny. I mean, if it was like another £3, it might be
absolutely
different.
And sure, if the coffee shop on the left was 6 quid, you'd be pretty sure that everybody would switch. But the point is that you can create an impact. You can make a difference in the world for a tiny amount of money, which does not affect your profitability, does not adversely affect people's willingness to buy from you. Quite the opposite, because you're able to tell the story with humility of the difference that your business is trying to make. The coffee shop on the right. In fact, here is you and I, accountants, will have spent a large part of our career working with businesses, either our own businesses or other people's, where we set targets, we set goals, we have business plans, we have monthly comparisons, whether we're ahead or behind target and so on. So imagine, let's think about the target setting, the goal setting, the planning process, our 2 coffee shops. In both cases, the owners of those coffee shops, let's say they want to make £1 million in profits. That's a reasonable goal. It's a great goal. Every one of us would love to make £1 million in profit, I guess. Unless we're already making more than that, and it's a backward step. But for most of us, it's aspirational. So traditional goal setting, which is what the coffee shop on the left is going to do. So the coffee shop on the left says to its team, okay, this is our objective. This is our purpose. Our purpose is for you, the baristas and the cleaner and the branch manager and so on. Our purpose is for you to make me £1 million. That's essentially what traditional goal setting is.
Yeah.
We may incentivize you. There may be some bonuses on there along the way, but essentially the goal is to make money for the business, which is ultimately to make money for the owners in the business. Imagine the coffee shop on the right. If instead of, it's still got actually the same deep down goal, which is to make money for the business owner, but imagine if the coffee shop on the right gathered its team together and said, we really believe that as businesses, it's our responsibility and our opportunity and our one of the joys of being in business that we can make a profound difference to the lives of others, a profound difference to the world. And so what we've decided to do is to set a goal. And our goal is to provide 1 million days of water, clean, health-giving water that unlocks educational opportunities and provides better medical health situations for children around the world. Our goal is to provide 1 million days of water. And we would love you as the team to be on board with that goal and to each play in our part to make that happen. Now, which of those two? Our goal is for you to earn money so I get £1 million, coffee shop on the left, or our goal is to make a measurable difference. In this case, it's 1 million days of water. But you think about, so which of those is going to motivate and engage the team? It's the one on the right, without any shadow of a doubt. That, you're going to attract people who buy into that vision that your business is there to change lives. You're going to attract baristas who love that idea. And the younger generation love that idea. But of course, Keith, we can both work out and see that it's actually the same goal, because to give 1 million days of water, that coffee shop on the right has got to sell 1 million cups of coffee.
That's
and if
right,
it sells 1 million cups of coffee, it makes £1 million in profit. It is the same goal.
Same goal. It's just,
but it's articulated differently. And when you articulate it differently, when you attach giving to it, you make it so much more likely to succeed. And you create a story that people will talk about. This is the coffee shop that's trying to give 1 million days of water. That's awesome. Okay. I want to go there.
Okay, so let me jump in then and then backtrack a bit. So you mentioned a few different things. So one of which is staff motivation, and I think that is that's a massive thing that should be emphasised, because people. A lot of people don't like their jobs. They have this Monday morning because they're giving up their time, and they have a miserable existence. But when they can see that the same emotional response we were talking about for customers, why people might want to buy the product or service, it works exactly the same for the staff, and that can make a massive difference, not only in terms of attracting staff, but also the way they behave at work. If they buy into your vision and they really think, oh, this is a great company to work for, we're doing all this good, we're helping people, it makes it a much more pleasant place to work, and it changes their energy, which affects also the way they interact with the customers, which also has a massive effect on the whole experience of buying the coffee as well. So it's a knock-on effect. And also you talked about also goal setting, and which is part of the same thing really. It just helps bring this vision a lot more alive, and it makes it concrete. And and you can imagine sort of having a graph in the corner or something, and everyone working towards the goal. And I can think of a couple of businesses that have sort of gone more down this approach that I can think of. I think, the body shop's an obvious example. I think they have a big thing about the environment is a major thing at the moment, isn't it? That a lot of people are very concerned with. And I think Starbucks also have done sort of things like that, and they've made a point about bring your own cup in and you can make it cheaper. So I think, this company cares about the environment, and that that does affect my. And you can see other companies which have gone the other route, and they've had their reputation really tarnished, because, for example, they've had their goods made in these sort of sweatshop type places in Asia, and a lot of people, especially younger people, are sort of turning away from them because that's like the opposite approach. That's what happens if you don't follow this at all. I do imagine that although we are both getting on a bit maybe, but and we are still, this idea, this vision really resonates with us, but I know especially younger people would be probably much stronger, this sort of thing.
Correct, yeah. The millennials and the younger generations are all feeling this so much more acutely. The need to have purpose, for their role to be more than just profit, their role to be more than just personal income, but actually to be purposeful, to be positive, to be creating a positive impact on the world and avoiding the kind of stuff which is negative. Now, I've got behind me on the wall over there the 17 UN Global Goals, or Sustainable Development Goals as they're referred to. Back in 2015, every civilized country, September 2015, every civilized country in the world signed up to a set of 17 goals which need to be achieved by 2030. We're 15 years into that. So we're 5 years into that 15-year cycle. The goal 1 is eradicating poverty. Goal 2 is ensuring that no one goes hungry. Goal 3 is ensuring that everyone has access to good health and well-being, and the list goes on. And there's climate in there, and there's environment, and there's life under the sea, and inequalities, and so on. Clean water and sanitation. 17 of these very specific goals. Globally, we are behind where we need to be on those goals. But right when they were launched, at the United Nations in September 2015, it was recognised that governments alone cannot make all of that stuff happen. I'm pointing over there because I've got it on my wall over there also. Governments alone can't make that happen, and actually that businesses have a responsibility and a massive opportunity to step up and step in and do something positive. But of course, actually tackling climate change and inequality and hunger, these are massively difficult problems that we've struggled with collectively and globally and politically and practically for many years. And because they're difficult problems, the risk is that we get put off by the complexity and we don't do anything. Whereas this simple idea of a piece of paper with, you identify the triggers, your equivalent of selling cups of coffee, and you identify some act of kindness that you're going to make happen in the world as a result of those triggers. Each of those triggers is good for your business. You're selling something, winning a customer, getting paid on time, getting a testimonial, getting a referral, whatever it is you treat as your left-hand side triggers. Those are all great for the business. If you then link them to the equivalent of water and e-learning for children and planting trees, but whatever equivalents people choose, could be fundamentally different in different parts of the world, different impacts. Every business can choose for themselves based on their own priorities. But that's the simplest possible way we can each make an initial step towards one or more of the UN Global Goals, so tackling one or more of the problems that we need to rise to and overcome globally. Let's not start in the difficult places. Stripping out or reducing the carbon footprint of our business operations is tricky. We need to do it for sure, but it's challenging, it's time consuming, it's hard work. If it were easy, we would have done it already. Whereas what is really easy is deciding today, for example, that until, or for the time being, because I haven't yet fully addressed all of the carbon issues in my business, I'm going to do something really simple. And every time we sell something, we're going to plant a tree. That's really simple. I can decide to do that this morning. I can start doing it this afternoon without anything getting in the way. And the tree can cost me from 40 US cents, so 35p. And it may be that if I'm selling low value items, for every 10 items I sell, I plant a tree. It's entirely up to me and my business, you and your business, to decide both what we link to, whether it's trees or water or food or education, whatever else, and how much of that we link to, whether it's 1 cent's worth or $1 worth or somewhere in between or somewhere above. Entirely up to each.
So how can we? So if someone wants to do this, how can they do it? Is there a website they can go to?
The set of tools that I use to do this are developed by a charity called B1G1. So b1g1.com is where they have a thing. They don't call it this, but I'm going to call it Amazon for kindness. If you think of Amazon, Amazon, if I want to buy anything today, I can go into Amazon, type into the search engine some keywords. I want to buy a spanner, and up on my screen will be dozens of spanner options. And if I like one, I can click, add it to my basket, give them my payment details, and it gets delivered. Tomorrow, probably, in the case of a spanner. Well, there's an equivalent for worthy causes. Yeah, so b1g1.com is the website, and
buy one, give one, presumably.
Originally, B1G1 stood for buy one, give one. They have it's a membership community, so I'm a member of that community and have been a member for 12 months. And in fact, if in a second, given that you're showing your screen, I'll point you to another page as well. But
yeah,
there are about 3,000 businesses already that do this. Yeah, that collectively, somewhere on that screen, I don't know whether we've gone past it. Yeah, on the left-hand side, look at that. There's a 211 million number. That's 211 million small acts of kindness. That might be days of water, trees planted, cataract operations carried out, malaria nets provided, anti-mozzie malaria nets or whatever. So there are 211 million of those small acts of kindness that have been linked to some kind of transaction in the business, selling something, getting paid, winning a customer, and so on. They due diligence the projects, and they allow me to go on there when I log in as a member and search for. So I give you an example. I had someone who very kindly visited me recently, visited me here, in fact, and that saved me traveling. And the conversation was a really positive, great one. But when she left, and the conversation went to football, because it was obvious from her personalised number plate she was a big football fan. So I went to b1g1.com and I typed in football to see whether there were projects that around the world that in some way use sport as therapy, and there were several. And there was one in particular that used sport as therapy, and I think it was, from memory, it was 30 cents a day. So I think what I chose to do was to say thank you for her coming. I funded a month's worth of access to footballer sports therapy, which was 30 cents times 30 days, which was $9. Compared to the cost of me traveling to meet her and parking and the time taken, this was tiny. But much more importantly, she actually, so those are those goals that are on the screen now, the ones that are on my wall behind me, and also that I'm wearing.
Oh yes, those, yes. So okay, so if someone wanted to fund a goal to do with football, is there a search box on here?
There is. I don't know. I normally log in as me, so okay. I don't know where the stuff. It's probably there. So if click on our projects, click on that one that's our projects. My guess is that might take us to the search engine.
There's a browse. You could probably.
Yeah, there is, but actually somewhere, and I just can't remember the link off the top of my head. And if you want to bear with me a second, I can give you the exact link. So whilst we're talking, I'm going to toggle across on my computer screen, see if I can find the exact link for you.
Okay.
And then I'll tell you that link, and then, or even send it to you, and we might be able to do that exactly. Well, or if you want, I can share my screen.
Yeah, you share your screen.
Yeah, why don't I do that? Because I'm actually logged in already, and I can.
Okay, so I think I have to set you up as a co-host.
Okay.
Which I I can do. So. There you go. Yeah, share your screen.
Okay, let me share my screen now. Then, yeah, I've got that facility. So when we get across to it, so this is the search engine. I'm logged in as me. You can see my picture at the top there. I'm on B1G1. View all project would have actually been the link I would have.
So is it free? Can anyone just become a member?
I'll talk about the membership thing in a second if you would like me to. But let me just show you this first, if that's okay. So I can do a simple search either by category or country or keyword, or I can do a more advanced search. So, for example, if I wanted to just search for projects that in some way address poverty, which is UN Global Goal number 1, I could just sort and search for poverty-related projects. In fact, there, right at the top of the list, is the one that I was talking about before, this e-learning for a child in rural India.
Okay.
You can see it's group learning. There's a picture of them actually receiving the group learning. If I click on it, you can see it's 1 cent a day or 12 cents a month. Actually, it's 12 cents a month. It's even cheaper. So the cost is even less. If I want to say, I want to fund e-learning for a child for a year, I can add it to my cart. It's now over in my shopping cart. There's obviously something else in there as well from a previous Let's just delete that one. So there it's in my cart. Let's say I had, there were 20 people that came to a web event and I wanted to fund that for 20 people. I would just pay in exactly the same way as I would do with Amazon. So I call that Amazon for kindness, because it allows me to search and sort by a number of ways. So for example, I might just want to search for projects that are in Australia or Myanmar or Thailand.
Yeah.
I've got some particular connection. Or I might want to search for projects that relate to the environment or food or human rights. I might want to search for projects which specifically help a type of beneficiary for the elderly or the disabled, or for entrepreneurs. If, we're both entrepreneurs, so if we did a little search there, these are a number. There are actually many more. We'll see some more in a second. But for $1, I can actually provide. That's probably training, I'm guessing. That will be some training and resources for a woman entrepreneur, in this case in Zambia. And interestingly, and one of the things I've learned, which is really interesting, around the world, most of the business training that most charities find is most effective is training provided to women.
Okay.
Because the women are so much less, well, they're not at all likely to take the profits from their business and drink them away.
Yeah.
They are much more likely to take the business seriously and use it to really support and lift up and improve life for their families. So we can, if I cleared the search so that we've got everything under the sun, and just gave you a sense of the lower, for this is a project that for 1 cent will provide a day's worth of vitamin A, which prevents child blindness. This project will help decorate and furnish a science lab. It's one child's worth of access to the lab. Clearly it doesn't cost 1 cent to do that, but they've taken the $1,000 and divided it up by the number of students and the number of
okay, so obviously, I mean, this how is this funded? Because the idea is that 100% of what you pay goes to these courses. Well, there must be an admin cost.
Yeah. So I'll stop sharing my screen because it's probably easier for us to talk this way.
Yeah.
B1G. So these are the tools that I use. I'm a member of this community. I've been a member of this community. I've been paying my membership fee for 12 years to use those tools, because I don't know any other way of making to come alive the ideas that we've been sharing so far. So it's the set of tools that I use. So there are 2 B1G1 legal entities. Bear in mind, I'm a member. I don't run this show. I don't have any stake in this. I'm just explaining it from my understanding. But I've checked my understanding with them, and it's true. There are two legal entities. The first one is this one here, is a US registered charity. And when I give, let's say I planted a tree for 40 cents. When I plant that forest tree in Kenya for 40 cents, I give my 40 cents through the basket that I've just showed you there, through this entity, and every single cent of that flows through to the project on the ground in Kenya that's planting the trees. There's no deduction. There's not even a deduction for the credit card charge. And you and I both know that's going to probably, somewhere along the way, somebody's got to pay the 4% that the credit card company's going to charge, let alone the cost of developing the software and hosting the platform and doing the due diligence and all that stuff. Not a single penny. 100% of what I pay, number one, flows through and out the other side to the organization, the charity in Kenya or Cambodia or London or wherever they are that's doing what I've funded. Secondly, that money is ring fenced, so they can only use it, in my example, for planting a tree. They can't use it to feed someone or provide a school classroom. They have to use other funding for that. But so my money is ring fenced, 100% goes through. But yes, you're absolutely right. There's all manner of costs, including, most obviously, the credit card cost, the 4%. So where the hell are all of those costs met by? And that's where this second entity, which is a social enterprise, this second entity picks up all of the costs.
Okay.
And it is funded by a membership fee. Now, for most businesses, that membership fee is $1 a day. That's what I pay.
Right.
So $1 a day. Now, I personally love that transparency. If I were to give £1 in a collection tin for Oxfam, or you were to give £1 to a collection tin in Oxfam, we actually don't know what the deliverable is going to be, how that £1 is going to be used. How much is paying for the collection tin? How much is paying for the salary of the person rattling it? How much is paying for the salary of the person who employed them and run the head office and created the advertising campaign? How much is being deducted for payment charges and transaction fees and due diligence and legal advice and so on and so forth? What's it actually going to deliver my pound? I don't know. I have to sort of take it on trust, or I have to spend ages drilling into the accounts. Whereas with the B1G1 model, when I give my £1 for the trees or whatever it is I give, I know exactly the deliverable with ring-fence cash, the outcome that that's going to achieve. And I also know that that my contribution to the cost of making those things happen is $1 a day, because those are those two separate entities with crystal clear accounting and accountability and responsibilities. So I personally much prefer that model than the much more obscure model which most charities use, which is you give us some money and some of it will be spent on an outcome and some of it will be spent necessarily. I fully get that, you know, people need to be paid, web developers, employees, lawyers, you know, everything. It's all got a cost. Let's not be unrealistic about it. Of course it has, but that cost is slightly not muddied, but it's obscure. And I don't know what my deliverable is when I give £1 to most charities. Whereas with this approach, my deliverable is what I've bought, paid for, funded through that screen that I just shared with you. And
okay, so that means I can't just plant 100 trees in Malawi or by itself. I have to become a member, which costs $1 a day, and then that gives me access to this thing you just showed me.
I can plant 100 trees because I've been a member for 12 years, but you would need to be a member, and everybody else's business would need. Sure,
but in the grand scheme of things, obviously it's a good thing to support.
Yeah, if you go back to our coffee shop example, it's going to cost them $1 a day to have a queue of 990 customers. It's still pretty much a no-brainer, isn't it? Really. So that's so. I think as an accountant, for me, the model and the maths really stack up. Yes. But as a human being, the purpose, just resonates with my values. And I think that's the most profoundly important question in all of this and this is where I would encourage you. You mentioned at the beginning that I've written a book. Yes, I have, in fact.
Well, actually, look, we've only got 7 minutes left. So, I wanted to say, is there anything else you want to say it now in the next 7 minutes, including talking about your book?
Absolutely.
You could share the screen as well if you want.
The book is called Our Time to Rise. I can't physically show you the book because it's not published in printed form until November, but it exists already. Pre-publication copies are available now, and we are giving them away. So this is a digital book printed copy will be November, but we're giving away the digital copy, and you can get anybody watching this can get that from the website, which is Our Time to Rise. Do you want to share your screen and show that? Yeah, okay. If I share my screen again, I'm just going to get it up on the screen first. Rubbish typist. I should have it.
Our Time to Rise?
The book is called Our Time to Rise.
It's actually in the back behind you in your bookcase.
Yeah, it's actually down there also.
And down there as well, yeah.
Screen cover of it.
And your mic.
That's actually not a book on the floor. That is a mock-up of it, obviously. I'm trying to share my screen now and go back to the right place, which is there. So this is the website that it will take people to. That's what the book will look like when it's physically printed, but you can actually download it for free.
Does the book basically, it just fleshes out what you've been talking about?
It takes this basic idea that we've been looking at, which is draw a piece of paper with a line down the middle, decide on the triggers on the left-hand side and the impacts on the right-hand side. And then it's a very short book. It's 79 pages. 40 pages of which are the substance, and that's the first 40 pages. RISE is an acronym, so it stands for Reconnect with Your Values. That's the R in RISE.
Okay.
The I stands for Impact. Decide on the impact you want to create in the world. The S stands for Storify, which is find the right words, pictures, and numbers to tell the story. Sure. And the E stands for Elevate, which is spread the word and get other people coming.
So the last two are to do with marketing.
The last two are how you communicate it.
Yes.
Which is mostly marketing the idea of, business as a force for good. But in the process, you effectively market your business. Yes, of course, you are communicating with your audience, your customer base, your prospective.
And the storytelling. And I imagine if you actually flew out to Malawi and planted the tree yourself or something like that, that would, stuff like that would just add there's a whole lot you could add to the story if you wanted to.
Absolutely. And indeed, I did go to Kenya last year with my daughter. We visited some of the projects. That's how I know what carrying the water back is like. So we've written this book to be given away. And it's 40 pages is the shortest book you'll ever read, but it's potentially transformational in terms of what the business does, the impact the business creates, but also the success that the business enjoys and the joy that the business owners have in their heart. And one of the things that's also unusual about the book is that anybody, you included, Keith, but anybody watching this can have their own special edition of the book with your name on the cover. You clearly wouldn't claim authorship. It's been written by Paul and I, but you can have your name on the cover in two ways. Either, produce for the friends of Keith Griggs, replace that with whatever your name is, the other people watching this, or if you want to go one step beyond that, you can actually write a foreword, which we will drop into the book. We'll add your branding and logo on the back of the book. We will then give you that book in digital format for you to give away for free. We don't get paid in any way, shape or form, because what we want to do with that book is take the ideas that you and I have been talking about today and get them into the hands of as many people as possible. Because some people will watch this and do absolutely nothing. They will change nothing. But others will say, look, that business on the right is clearly doing the right thing for the world and the right thing for the business and the people in the business, the right thing for the customers, the right thing for the team, the right thing for the owners, the management, and for all the other stakeholders. Clearly, that's the right thing to do. We want to do that. And the book will show you exactly how to take the ideas we've sort of talked about loosely here. It's in a structured workbook style. So you work through the 40 pages and that's it.
It's a workbook. Okay, that's
good.
Great. Okay, I've just got one. I've just thought of one more quick question. Do we get gift aid on UK tax if we give to this?
It varies from project to project. I personally, despite being an accountant, usually in front of an audience of accountants, I defer to the proper accountant. I've not done account of years. This is my perspective on it. I don't care personally whether it's tax deductible or not, which is why I never claimed tax deduction. I've never looked into it. Where tax deduction is possible, then obviously businesses and individuals can do that. It's different for companies and sole trader partnership. The rules are different, but I'm really lost off on
because I have actually donated to US charities before, and I have actually claimed tax.
Yeah, so it may well be tax efficient as well. I would regard that,
which would be the way you could either keep the money yourself or you could give as an extra.
As an extra giving. I would regard that as a bit of icing on the cake, which personally
doesn't
matter to me, but clearly worth. Get a good accountant, not me, but get a good accountant to answer that question. Anybody who wants to do this stuff.
Okay, so we've got about 1 minute left. So is there anything else you want to say before we go?
One, I want to thank you hugely for having me today. I want to thank our audience for listening, and for those that choose to be like the coffee shop on the right, that choose to do something different. A huge thank you on behalf of humanity. I think bottom line, goes back to where we sort of started when I pointed at my front door. Do we want our values to be values that we just live at home in our family lives, in our personal lives, or are they really values? Because if they're really values, if they're really what we stand for, then we should really build them into our business operations, our business systems, our business strategy. And it's as simple as taking a piece of paper with a line down the middle and deciding what to have on the left and on the right hand side. The book takes you through that. It will be awesome to do that together. And my one final thought is I've now effectively retired. I'm giving away all of my time, all of my energy, my books. And so I will have a one-to-one conversation with anybody who wants to talk about this stuff and wants to think about how best to apply it in their business. And I will help guide you, share my thoughts, go into the software and show you how to use it, how to get it set up, how to make the choices, not in any kind of prescriptive way, just to be helpful so that you can decide what you want to do with these ideas, if anything. But ultimately it boils down to who are you and what do you really stand for?
Okay, I mean that sounds amazing, and it's an amazing offer as well. So they can just go to
stevepipe.com is my website.
Stevepipe.com,
my contact details are there, but the book website, ourtimetorise.global, that will also connect us up.
They also connect if they go to our time. to rise.global. Which the links will be. I'll put them in the description.
Awesome. Thanks, Pete.
Be able to find that. Well, it's been amazing to have you on the show, and it's been very sort of uplifting, as well as I can see the sort of my brain's whirring a bit, and I see, yeah, well, actually, you know, I can make more money as well as helping make the world a better place. So when I first saw that, I thought, no, that can't be true. What a ridiculous idea. There must be a con or something. But now you've explained it, I can see, it can actually work. And some companies are doing this to a greater or lesser.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Tom Shoes is a classic example. Every time you buy a pair of shoes, they provide a pair of shoes to someone else in need around the world. And that's been their business model since the start. And they're one of the most talked about businesses. So there are lots of examples of well-known businesses doing this. But actually, what's really exciting is this is something that even the smallest business can start doing today. It's not. That's
right, yeah, because the big companies, small companies, and you also mentioned that they're talked about for this reason. So that's a whole other layer of benefits that you can get stories in, magazines.
Can you imagine the reputational benefits of being a business that's quantifiably making good things happen in the world? Because that's the other, as an accountant, my one other piece of advice, and it's in the book. It's part of the storytelling, the Storify chapter, which is, I believe that every business in the world should have an impact scorecard on its webpage, on its website, showing and quantifying its positive impact. Now, we don't have enough time to talk about that, but we do talk about it in the book so people can see that for themselves for free. And if anybody wants to set up an impact scorecard for their business, contact me, steve@stevepipe.com. I will help you do so for free.
That's great. So yes, there's two aspects. So one is you can set a goal to do this, and then on this other page you can say scorecard, how you're actually working towards achieving this goal.
Got it, spot on.
Which is great.
My personal goal is to create 100 million days of help, and I'm currently at 18 million. So I'm
on the way. On the way. That's great.
Well on the way, yeah.
All right, well, it's been fantastic having you on the show. We better end it there, but I wish you all the best in your project, and I hope that many other people take you up on your offer, read your book, get inspired, and also just work together to help make this world a better place. Okay, that's great.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye-bye.